I want to talk about money today, and I know that there is people that talk about money like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman and various different folks, but my take on it is it's a little different than their particular takes, but I sort of buy into that. I was really big into Dave Ramsey for a bit, but not necessarily a religious. That is not a big part of my life as much. So, and some of the things that both of them, or any number of different people that talk about personal finance, money, it doesn't necessarily sort of fit. One thing that used to get me really, upset was that my situation. I was a student forever, and nothing ever sort of made sense, right? And if you listen to, for example, Dave Ramsey would say, don't spend anything when you are a PhD student or a graduate student. That's like physically impossible to do, and there often is. We could have done way better. I'm going to tell you that right up the get go. Could have done way better. But there's often, you know, challenges with doing that because that circumstance is so rare, and the sort of thoughts and advice just don't belong. They don't sort of fit with the situation, and people don't really understand what you're going through. Not only are you basically on poverty level forever, even if you're making a somewhat wise choice for yourself, right? Like, I went into a business school PhD. Like, who would have thought that that would have been tough to sort of manage. But, you know, it still was difficult to manage. There's still not that many resources around. So it's very, very challenging. And I want to talk about making sure that you have the biggest thing with money, the way that I think about it, is that it creates stability in your life, right? And what you want to think about is, how do you create stability throughout your life, such that you are doing okay, and perhaps at one point you've done really quite well. And the advice, the sort of thoughts are often similar um, to whatever other people are sort of talking about, but it's really thinking of this stability. How can you sort of use um, money such that it becomes an important part of your life? And part of the way that you do that is you detach from it in a healthy way, right? Where you think of it not necessarily as the money that you think about, right? But you think of it as it's just another thing that's there that helps to bring stability into my life. And you have to think about, like, imagine um, you have to, over the course of a year, and you're trying to plan for what you're going to eat over the course of a year. It's not going to work out very well, right? But if you plan within a day, within maybe a week, some people do that. We did that for a while. It never really works out very well for us, but you just kind of plan to consume less than you bring in, and you just do that repeatedly. Eat peanut butter sandwiches and things like that. You do okay, right? And so it's not necessarily a a sort of relationship with a budget or anything like that that matters. It's the I'm going to detach from what money means and the symbolic nature of money, and just be okay with who I am at this given moment. And that is incredibly hard to do for all of us, right? It's very hard to do, to detach from the sort of symbolic nature of what that means, because we're sort of, we're status based creatures. We like to demonstrate to other people, who's got the bigger pyramid. Um, and and then we seek out at doing that, and it doesn't matter sort of whether we have the resources or not. So part of what I'm going to suggest is not necessarily, like, this is kind of counterintuitive, but it's more of what we do. We try to, have kind of a loose budget. It's not really that, we were vigilant for a while, but so hard to actually keep this up and to do. But the thing that we do now is we're just a lot less detached from money. And yes, if you have a lot less money, you have to be much more vigilant and paying attention to everything. But it's thinking about how can I just not care about it in the sense of the symbolic nature that you're trying to impress other people. If you're okay with driving around in a junky car, if you're okay with, a really old junky car and you're making far more money than that, right? If you're okay with cutting your own hair, if you're okay with wearing clothes from, maybe you go to the Salvation Army or whatever, if you do all of those things, you don't even really need a budget. You just get into that particular, um, you know, belief or set of beliefs that you're just fine with who you are. Right? It has nothing to do with budgeting or anything like that, but it's everything to do with just figuring out, like, hey, I'm okay. Um, and then from there, the only thing that the only there's a couple of things that are really important that I do believe in terms of what other folks say is have that a little rainy day emergency fund, right? Like first of all, a couple $1,000 or $1,000 just in your bank and your checking account, right, for those day to day sort of cash flow needs. Then you have you know, I think it's 4 to 6 months of savings, of expenses, and that's not as much as you think it is, but it's enough that will get you through, the day to day if something was to happen, right? Because there's a period of, even if you do get insurances and things like that, that you're not going to have money available. And then after that, you get all those insurances, life insurance, we have life insurance that's, 10 times their salary, probably even a little bit more than that. And we just get term insurance for like 20 years, right? Like until the kids are grown and gone. Um, you know, then once you get the health insurance and all that, like all the things that you need, um, then you go and you start saving. You save in that's where I'd suggest the 15% of everything that you actually makes, that is sound advice. Of everything that you make, everything that you ever make, you put 15% on it. But after you pay off all your school loans and debts and things like that. Um, but you do that repeatedly, and you sort of live the life that you're not caring as much about money, right? It doesn't mean anything to you. There's no meaning. There's no, like, if you have a nice purse, it doesn't feel the same way. You have a nice car, it doesn't feel the same way. You just kind of have this, like, whatever. Yes, it's nice, and yes, you're communicating status and all that kind of stuff, but you know you have to detach from all of that stuff as much as you can and detach from the outside world so that you can do the things that you need to do for a long, extended period. More that you can stand up and have courage. And it's really a moment of courage where you're like, I'm just not listening to the outside world. Right, like the outside world is most often incorrect, anyways, right? And all the voices that are telling you to go spend this, go do this. Don't do it, right? Just live a modest lifestyle for a long time. And if you do that and you look around, you'll see people doing this, right? And you're like, why aren't they spending more money? Like given who the salary that they bring in, or they live so poorly. Well, they're doing things actually financially sound, right? And they don't, it's not quite they don't quite fit in with the sort of culture, and you can be okay with that. That's where the courage comes in. Maybe it's just sheer delusion, and you're okay with that delusion, or it's just courage, right? When you stand up to it and you say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to live a healthy and happy life, within my means, probably well below my means, and I'm just going to do that repeatedly. And if you have that as your starting point, I think you'll do okay. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.